Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kira, and you guys, I'm so excited for Consultant Takeover. Guys, that was me attempting to sing into this microphone for you, and I hope you loved it. Today, Consultant Takeover. Grab your pens, grab your notebooks, bringing in the heat today. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental Team Podcast.
Hello, Dental A-Team listeners. This is Brit, and guys, it's Consultant Takeover today. So always a great day when we get to take over podcast, and I'm super excited. You get the hygiene team today. Dana's joining me here today. Dana, how you doing?
Good. Always love it when I get to participate in anything hygiene.
Right? We love it. Hygiene takeover almost. It's still consultant takeover, but kind of hygiene takeover at the same time. So guys, this is a chance that we get as consultants to take over the mic from Kira and offer up some tips and tricks we've got from hundreds of practices that we work with nationwide and share things that we think will be beneficial to you guys. And so always let us know, like us, comment, drop us an email at hello@thedental.com if there's any other topics you want us to tackle. But today we're kind of what I feel like going into hygiene doctor world a little bit, right, yeah. Dana? Hygiene doctor world a little bit. Talking about exams, right? Dana, have you worked in offices where you have multiple doctors working in an office?
I absolutely have. Yes.
Same. I think my max number was we had 5 in one office, so quite a few different doctors in an office to work with. Which is fun. I love working with lots of people, but when it comes to exams, there sometimes can be a little variety when there's multiple doctors. Would you agree?
Yes. And while variety is usually the spice of life, it definitely keeps you on your toes. It can be challenging.
Yeah, for hygienists, I'm like, I love it. I love all my different doctors. The longer I work with you, the better I get to know you for sure. But when it comes to being in a practice where it's a group practice where we have multiple doctors, it's super helpful when we can have some level of calibration with those exams. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It helps us know what to expect. It helps us know our expectations as far as the information that they want us to gather and us to give to them, what they think is important, and to us to feel really super confident in preheating things and getting things ready and having discussions with the patient prior to the doctor entering the room and making sure that, you know, those are really solid and we feel super confident and comfortable in doing it, which makes our exams more successful.
Absolutely. And I think this starts with number one is like handoffs. Having the same type of handoffs from doctors is super helpful. Just so like, it's like a little dance between like assistants and doctors have their little dance while they're doing treatment, and like hygiene and doctors have their little dance while they're doing exams. So like, I know where to like pop in and I know what information to relay when. So like handoffs is like first thing when it comes to getting on the same page and getting calibrated with exams. And some good ways that I've seen doctors come in when it comes for exams is I usually like to like do my handoff first. So like I like to introduce that doctor, like love on that patient a little bit about how happy, give him a compliment, recap what I've already talked about. So like doctor doesn't have to come in and ask that question and the patient doesn't have to repeat anything. So like recap and then give him a little something like personal to then like connect and doctor can take it from there. That's my ideal kind of handoff, which we call the ICRP handoff. So introduction, compliment, recap, and then something personal. But having that handoff, or some people, you know, trust transfers, whatever you want to call it, but having that good handoff at the beginning is super helpful. So then my doctor doesn't come in and like start asking all these questions when we've already talked about them, which is my least favorite thing that happens because it sucks my time when I'm already in a rush. But that's where I think it starts off as handoff first.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've just spent a lot of time with that patient. So the more that as the hygienist, we can kind of package up and hand over to the doctor, truly helps build importance. It helps build trust. They see continuity of care because they actively hear it happening as the patient. So everybody's on the same page, right? And then doctor can kind of back you up. So it is that little bit of like box it all up, hand it up to the doctor. Doctor can put that bow on it, and doctor's got a lot to do in that 5-minute exam, right? Ideal exam, we'd love to see under 5 minutes, but they've got to build that rapport, make a connection, tie in the personal, do the diagnosing, talk about the treatment, right? It's endless. So the more that we can prep and put together and hand over to them, even in that beginning minute of that exam, the more successful that exam is going to be for sure.
Yeah. And with that, in order for me, hygiene and assistants too, same world. Assistants do lots of exam with doctors. They're identifying a lot of treatment over on the doctor side as well. But in order for me to really be able to give an efficient like recap and prep those patients, right? Preheat them, tee up treatment for doctor, is having some sort of like calibration amongst my multiple doctors on how we're diagnosing things as well, right? Because then I'm not diagnosing anything, but I can confidently talk about what might happen or what the doctor might want to do in certain scenarios when all my doctors are calibrated on the same page about as close as possible when it comes to diagnosing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really simple to do too. It sounds like a daunting process, right? Like, how do I become familiar with 4 different doctors diagnosing? Or how do we get 4 doctors to be more calibrated or in line when it comes to diagnosing? And it really is just as simple as pulling x-rays, right? Talking about them together, reviewing what you would diagnose, talking about the differences, talking about the whys, and coming up with some sort of like at least standard of care, right, for that visit. It is not a very difficult process. We just have to do it consistently and do it until we are closer aligned.
Are you guys sick of trying to figure it out on your own? I know I am. When I'm trying to run a business, sometimes I just think like there's got to be a better way to do this. And so for me, my answer has been to find someone who's done it and does it really, really, really well. Like I'm talking the best of the best of the best. I want someone who's been in my shoes, somebody who understands what I'm going through. When I was looking for the consulting business, I found a coach who literally has run a consulting business. Well, that seems like the perfect fit. So you guys, right now we have a few spaces open in our Platinum Consulting. That is in the consulting where we actually come to your practice. We help you get systems implemented. We don't just tell you what systems to implement. We actually implement them with you and for you. You guys, it is one of the best investments I've ever made is to hire a coach who understands the business I'm in, who's lived it, who's done it. And that's what we in the Dental team do. We literally physically fly to you. So if you're sick of trying to figure it out on your own, if you just want somebody who understands you, join our Platinum. I'd love to have you. I'd love to have our consulting team come out and see you, be in your office, be with your team, and truly help you get onto the easy path of dentistry. It doesn't have to be hard. So join us in the Platinum. We'd love to have you.
Yep, agreed, Dana. And I'm all for when you've got, especially quite a few doctors in one location, and depending on how long you've worked together and how closely you do diagnose, I do think doctor calibration meetings are a great time for this to happen, to be able to bring doctors together. I'm all for like in those meetings that you have where you're calibrating for doctors, the doctor calibration meetings, like have some fun cases you guys need help with or talk about or interesting things that have come up, like something to learn about, and have some standards in there just to make sure we're still on the same page with how we're diagnosing. Like Dana said, some x-rays, some pictures, pull them up, have everybody write down what would you diagnose for this patient as far as treatment goes, and just make sure we're all like pretty dang close on how we're diagnosing and nobody's like, there aren't any true outliers. And if so, we're not saying, doctors have to diagnose a certain way, but it's worth a conversation to see what's our practice philosophy on how we want to take care of our patients and how we want to be treating them. And that's going to help you guys come into better alignment when it comes to diagnosing and exams.
Yep, I agree. And the other thing, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say it, and it helps your team big time.
Mhm.
Coming from hygienists, it helps me a lot when you guys are kind of on a similar page.
Yep, I agree. I agree. And you could do the same thing once you feel like doctors are pretty much in line. You can do the same thing with hygiene with your hygienist team. So once you feel like you're more aligned, then have hygiene say what they think the doctors would do in this situation. Have hygiene kind of do the same thing that the doctors did together. That again helps hygiene be really comfortable.
Agreed, because then we know how to like better anticipate your needs when it comes to diagnosing and help talk to those patients about things. And we can make assistants and hygienists can make doctors' life a whole lot easier when we've already talked about potentially what might be needed or what the doctor might recommend, or hey, here's what I'm seeing, here's what might need to happen to take care of that thing, so that your life can be super slick and efficient. And it goes back also to when it comes to patients accepting treatment, another reason why calibrating exams is super beneficial, because when I can bring something up as a here's what I see, here's what might need to be done, that patient can start processing, oh, there is something there. I might need to have some work done. So by the time doctor comes in and says it, like, hey, yes, this is what's needed to take care of that problem, the patient's already started emotionally processing things a little bit and they're more willing to accept it. Whereas if I'm not sure what to talk about because I'm not sure how doctor's going to diagnose, or like everybody's a little different, so it's hard for me to kind of really know how to talk about that treatment to a patient, then when doctor comes in and says, hey, there's this thing and here's what needs to happen, it's a little more of a surprise to that patient in that moment. So being able to hear it multiple times is going to definitely help your case acceptance. So you wouldn't think exam calibration, case acceptance, but truly it helps your team to be able to speak to that patient, really tee up treatment, preheat that patient for you, and get you better case acceptance for those patients so it's not such a shock.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's truly just prepping the patient that there is something there is a concern. Doctor is surely going to come in and tell you, luckily you're in the great spot, right? You're in a dental chair. So we see concerns and there is a dentist that is going to come in and help you fix it, get you taken care of. We just need to talk about it, talk about what we see, talk about what we've done, and give the patient the information before the doctor comes in. That way then, right, doctor's conversation can back that up, give further information, get the patient really on board.
Yeah, for sure. And in practices where there's multiple doctors, like you can even have where doctors are kind of have a focus, right? One doctor might do like root canals within the practice, or one doctor might do more oral surgery stuff because that's what they like within the practice, which is totally fine. I love it when you kind of diversify those skills within the practice. And that's where calibration helps, so that we also know how we handle those. If it's we internally refer, then great. I can already start that conversation. If I know it's something that might be referred to another doctor within our practice, I can start building that rapport with that patient and edifying that doctor who might be taking care of them. But if I'm not sure how we handle those things, then I'm going to be much more timid, which unfortunately comes across not as confident. And ultimately, it just impacts our overall trust with that patient when I can't speak as confidently.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So if you need some reasons on why to calibrate exams, guys, being able to speak confidently, efficiency of time, that your hygienist and your assistant can do a lot of the legwork before you come in for exams, and ultimately case acceptance. So those patients have that confidence to accept the treatment that we all know that they need to have done, which benefits the office and benefits, most importantly, our patients. So those are some reasons and some things to calibrate. Handoffs, right? Make sure that we've got them down. How are we handing that information off to the doctor? And then how we're diagnosing are the most important things we need to know out of that calibration. So if you don't feel like things are calibrated, I'll tell you, ask your most bold hygienist. They'll tell you whether our doctors are calibrated or not, right, Dana?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that they know, and assistants too, like your team knows, kind of can tell if it's easy for them to anticipate and doctors are in line, or if things aren't in line. And if you're not, like, don't be afraid, have those calibration meetings, figure it out. Talk about the philosophy in the office. That might be what it comes back to, is we've got some different philosophies and where do we want to be and what are we okay with. And then just make sure that gets communicated to the team on how we're diagnosing so that they can become confident in it. So super helpful. Dana, anything else to add when it comes to calibrations for exams?
The only thing I was going to add is if you have that confident hygienist who will tell you you're not calibrated, even if she can pinpoint, it might not be all things, right? You might be aligned on lots of things, but on specific things, maybe not as much. So whether, we look at occlusal stain, right? If we put that as a watch, what we do with all of those things. So it might, if they can pinpoint to even some things that where you aren't calibrated, it'll help those meetings get you more results.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And good questions might be for that hygienist of like, hey, how can we make exams more efficient? Or like what information do you need to be able to speak more confidently to tee up doctor preheat treatment? Those might be some good questions to ask.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, if you're not calibrated on exams, team members, if you hear this, if we're not calibrated on exams with the doctors, like this is your time. Take the opportunity, talk about it, get really calibrated so that your team can be confident. And that's a wrap for Consultant Takeover today on the Dental Team podcast. So let us know what you think. We love hearing from our listeners. Drop us a 5-star review or email us over at hello@thedentalteam.com. And thanks so much for listening. And we'll catch up with you next time on the Dental Team podcast.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.